It's episode 620 of the Locked On Rangers podcast. On today's show, I'm talking about an incredibly needed 7-0 smashing of the Philadelphia Phillies and what it means for this Rangers squad, plus a whole bunch of roster moves that have big implications for the Rangers' upcoming months. All that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On the Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan since 2010, the founder and host for all 4 seasons of this Locked On Rangers podcast. It is Wednesday, June 22nd. Your Rangers are 32-35, alone in second place in the American League West, 10 games behind the Houston Astros in the division, 5 behind a two-way tie between Boston and Minnesota in the third wildcard spot. Thank y'all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. The best way you can help grow the show is to hit that subscribe button on YouTube. We are 5 away from 900, which means maybe we might get to our 1,000 subscriber goal by the All-Star break. I don't know, but y'all will help me do that. I appreciate every single one of you that has already done that, and all of those of you who are watching on YouTube who have not hit that subscribe button, just click it. It's real easy, and I really appreciate it. Before I get into today's show, this episode is brought to you by Sports Card Investor app. Welcome to the world of trading cards reimagined. Stay tuned later in the show for more information on this awesome new tool for collectors. You're going to want to check out the Sports Card Investor app. Now, on yesterday's show, I talked a lot about roster changes offensively that I think the Rangers needed to make. And what do I know? Literally a minute after I dropped the show, about a minute. And I think it's a new Rangers record. If in case you're a new listener to the show, you don't follow on Twitter very much. The Rangers have a nasty habit. Maybe it's just out of spite. Maybe it's an ongoing commitment to the bit. Maybe it's just the timing of when I put my episodes out, and that's just when the Rangers happen to release news. But it always happens. For the last few years since I've been doing this show, when I release these episodes in the afternoon, it feels like very quickly after me putting out the show that the Rangers either make a move that I was calling for or make me look absolutely stupid and invalidate the episode, make it just completely wrong, minutes after me dropping it. And they really did that in this one. There were a lot of roster moves before this game on Tuesday, whatever day of the week it was, that I'd just been calling for, and they finally did it. So here is what they did. They activated Mitch Garver from the COVID IL. They activated Josh Smith off of the regular IL. Mabrice Valoria, the catcher from AAA, who is doing really well so far this season, was called up. Glenn Otto is sent to AAA on rehab assignment. That's great. He is expected to make his first Major League start back on Sunday, so that will be very good for this Rangers team. They have missed him. They have needed him, and him coming back is going to be huge for this Rangers team. Eli White, who I thought was originally just going to be 4 to 5 weeks, is going to be out for a little bit longer. He has been placed on the 60-day IL, and Zach Rex was sent back to AAA. I believe they didn't have to option him because he was a COVID replacement call-up. I'm not exactly sure. That was the wording on the Rangers PR tweet that I saw. Not exactly sure about that. We'll have to get more information on it. And Sam Huff was optioned to AAA. Now, Sam Huff had been doing a mostly fine job, but as of late, he was in a really bad way. He was not hitting extra base hits and not hitting home runs. He had 1 home run and 2 doubles in his several games at the big league level so far this year. That was 27 games, 75 plate appearances, and that's just not what Sam Huff does. I like that he was walking more. That is great. I like that he was hitting 282. I did not expect him to do that. I did not expect him to do nearly as well as he did. Obviously, his defense is pretty solid at catcher. He was doing a fine job backing up there. But in order for his development to get more developed, he is still just 24 years old, which feels kind of crazy. That's still pretty early for a catcher to be called up and kind of fully ready-ish, which I don't think he was fully ready, but still, for him to be called up at 24 and playing fairly consistently was encouraging for catcher, because usually it takes those guys quite a while to develop. Those guys and high school pitchers, those guys take some of the longest times to get to the big leagues because there's just so much development that needs to happen. But he wasn't hitting bombs, and he wasn't hitting the ball nearly as hard as he had at pretty much every level. So the Rangers are sending him back down to get some more consistent everyday at-bats. I think that's the right move. I was a little worried when they called him up that he wouldn't be ready, and then I was also a little worried that him not having regular at-bats would stunt his development. I think that might be the case just a little bit, not like any wild, crazy setback, but it was good to see him be at the major league level and not be completely overwhelmed. That was encouraging. I mean, he did have a 10-game stint in 2020 that I thought he was called up way too soon. They called up a lot of those guys way too soon, and they were not ready. The only one who didn't completely fall on their face that year was Leote. I mean, he kind of fell off the next year. Like it was way too soon to call a lot of those guys up. But Sam Huff did well. He just needs some more consistent everyday at bats. Maybe Bruce Valori. I don't know how much his long-term future as a big leaguer holds, but I think him being the backup catcher while they wait for Garver to be healthy and catching again, I think that is the move. I think that's a smart move, and I'm glad that they're doing it and not calling up Yoho Pozo because I don't really think that he's a catcher, and I also don't really think that any of the guys in Double-A are ready. If you wanted to call up like a Matt Watley and know he's going to be an absolute zero, but it is a major league defensive like caliber catcher right now, and you just know his bat's going to be absolutely horrendous, then I think that would have been a better move than calling up a guy who is just not a catcher, because the defensive value of a catcher is so important that you can live with it being absolute offensive zeros. I mean, look at what the Astros have done the last couple of years with some pretty much offensive zeros at catcher, but really darn good defensive ones when they're actually providing that value defensively. Unlike a certain guy who I'm not going to name from the Rangers several years ago, who was brought in as a great defensive catcher, absolute offensive zero, who was a bad defensive catcher and an offensive zero. There is some stuff to be done there. But the big news is that Josh Smith is back. I did not expect them to come back this quickly. I really didn't. But right now, my first thought, he played third base in last night's game over Ezequiel Duran, and I'm like, okay, well, are these guys just going to be splitting time, or are they going to platoon them? I don't think that's a great option. I think both of them, again, like Sam Huff, need some consistent at-bats, and they're also, unlike Huff, producing more at the big league level. Granted, Josh Smith did it in his first 5 games. This was his 6th game last night, and he's already put up some crazy numbers, hitting 400 still on base, 550, and OPS over 1,000, while providing some pretty darn good defense. That's what you absolutely love to see. Now, I was saying, okay, well, if you're going to split these guys' time in third base, like you need to just send one of them down somewhere. And neither of them have been doing poor enough that you need to send them down. And I immediately talk crap on Kole Calhoun last night, and he turns around and goes and hits a 2-run homer. But he is not starting last night. He's not starting in this game. Josh Smith is starting in left field for the first time in his pro career. He has played some center field. So I talked about it on yesterday's episode that I didn't really want him coming up to the big league level and trying to figure out left field, but I guess that's what they're going to do. They're just going to have him figure out left field because his bat is so good that they think that he can compensate there. I don't know. I'm going to talk a little bit more about last night's game and a little bit more about this situation, how they're going to get these two guys the right amount of play appearances and also help this Rangers offense win, because they have both been doing that in their very limited time at the big league level. I'm going to get into all that and more, plus a little bit about an absolutely wild game that happened in the Rangers division that I think we need to take note of. That was not the Rangers game. But first, this episode is brought to you by the Sports Card Investor app. Whether you're a casual collector or you're looking for exciting alternative investment opportunities, the free Sports Card Investor app has something for you. That's right, for you. There's breakout stars and prospects that are debuting. You know, you got Ezequiel Duran, Josh Smith that I was literally just talking about. Or you got some guys who are under the radar like Adolis Garcia who might end up having a really, really great career. Or if you want to get yourself a Corey Seager or Marcus Semien card, you want to see them with all of their Rangers glory in there, you know, you can go ahead and get those cards. You can, if you're feeling nostalgic, you want to go for an old player, you want to get a Nolan Ryan Rangers card, you know, with the free and sports card investor app, you can pull out those old cards that you've got. Or if you've got one of those that are lying around that you doesn't mean as much to you, or you got your favorite childhood players and you want to see how much they're all worth today. Interested in getting into sports cards? Find great deals on your favorite players. There have never been a better time to start collecting cards of your favorite players. With the free Sports Card Investor app, you can see the latest values and find great deals on one-of-a-kind collections. Download the Sports Card Investor app today, available for free in the Google Play and Apple App Stores, or go to sportscardinvestor.com/lockedon. This was a fun game last night, and we're going to get into it. But first, one live NBA draft show is not enough for Locked On. The entire NBA channel is going live on NBA Draft Night. So if you have a favorite NBA team, go subscribe to their Locked On YouTube channel right now to get notified when they go live on NBA Draft Night. This was a big win for the Rangers, coming off two really depressing losses to the Tigers. Absolutely missed opportunities. They should have won that series. They should have swept that series, but they didn't. They got shellacked in both of those final games, and they should not have been shellacked. They should not have lost even. They should have done the shellacking. But they pulled out the shellacking on the Phillies. I don't know how many more times I can say that before it starts to sound like not a real world. But the Rangers just put the beat down on the Phillies in a 7-0 win. A good team win. Contributions from literally everybody. Everybody got on base at least once offensively. Garver was the only one without a hit. He did have the only walk in this game, though. He is back and DHing and hitting in the 5 spot in this batting order. Now, this was a huge day for Marcus Semien. Had a 3-hit day, a multiple extra base hit day, had a 2-run homer, had a double that kept up the scoring. But the story of the game, again, was Martin Perez, completely shutting down this incredibly strong Phillies offense. The Phillies got 6 hits and 3 walks off of him, but they did not score a single run. He was absolutely nails in the biggest opportunities. They were 0 for 9 with runners in scoring position, left 8 men on base. This Phillies offense that is one of the best in Major League Baseball. They are absolutely stacked to the brim. They did not have Bryce Harper in this one. They are hoping that he is going to play in today's afternoon game. I have not seen the Phillies lineup come out yet, so he might be playing, but I believe he missed time because he was trying to figure out how to spell his own first name right. Truly embarrassing. Not his fault, more his parents' fault. But you're a grown man now. You can go and change your name and spell it with an I, like Bryce is supposed to be spelled. You can see, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see right there. That's how Bryce is supposed to be spelled, with an I. This is my vendetta. Most famous Bryce out there. I need to become more famous than Bryce Harper so that everyone can know that Bryce with an I is the correct way to spell this name. I have been fighting this for 10 years since he came up to the big leagues, and it has been an uphill battle and a struggle, but one that I readily hold on to. But a real struggle was this Phillies offense. Absolutely nothing. Some great defensive plays with runners in scoring position that maybe could have been hits, including a Kole Calhoun diving play in shallow left center field to absolutely rob a base hit in the, I believe, the 6th inning of last night's game. Another nice play came from Corey Seager on a ball. It was deflected off of Martin Perez to get Nick Castellanos out at first base with a runner in scoring position, a pair of runners on, actually. So a really nice play from him there, but nice hitting from top to bottom in this lineup. Corey Seager had a single that went the opposite field. I don't know why they shift him so much. He has so many singles to the opposite field. It feels like, well, I guess they've probably robbed a whole lot of, I feel like the reason all of his expected numbers are so much higher than his actual numbers is because of the shift. I feel like he more than anyone has hit like 108, 105 plus mile an hour balls at shortstops and second baseman and whoever in shallow right field that would have been a bunch more singles, because right now he's only hitting 230, but his expected batting average is much higher than that. It's at 294. His expected slugging is much higher than that as well. It really is. It's 588. And his actual slugging is 433. So those expected numbers are getting back up there. He did not have a homer in a 3rd straight game in this one, but, still some solid plays from him, and Marcus Semien was absolutely crushing it. Another great day from Jonah Heim, and from the middle to bottom third of this Rangers lineup, a multi-hit day for Nathaniel Lowe, who had a bomb, and then Jonah Heim followed it up by going back-to-back with him. Had a 12, his only strikeout in this game was, he had 2 strikeouts, but one of them was a 12-pitch strikeout. He was really seeing Kyle Gibson well. He has caught him. He knows his tendencies. He knows what he is like. And so he said after the game, you kind of know what the pitches are going to move like because you've seen them behind the plate. It's a little bit different of a viewpoint, but it's the first time that Kyle Gibson has faced the Rangers after playing for them. Really loved what I saw from him last year. Really bummed about losing him, but he is going to be free agent after this year. So if the Rangers are really, really feeling like they want to see a reunion, then they could go ahead and chase him after the season. But he's going to be 35 next year. He's been doing solid, but not great work for the Phillies. He's got an ERA just a few ticks above 4. But, a solid middle of the rotation starter, not quite the all-star stuff that he was doing last year. Maybe if he came back and was working with Jonah Heim, whose framing is just absolutely phenomenal, 98th percentile of baseball. But he has had a problem with throwing out runners. They finally have pop times on here on Baseball Savant, and his pop time, basically, if you don't know what that is, it is the time from when the ball hits the glove to when the ball in his glove, when the base runner is trying to steal, to when he throws the ball and it hits the second baseman or shortstop's glove at second base to try and get a runner stealing. And the Rangers have been run on quite badly this year, and he is in the bottom 27th, in the 27th percentile. So basically the worst quarter of the league, which is not great, but his framing has been so great that overall defensively he's raising the ceiling of this pitching staff. And I think he's been a huge part of Martin Perez, who has been absolutely nailing his spots. I mean, Martin Perez has just been on the nails. He doesn't really need a whole lot of help from framing, but just that little bit of an edge, I think, have taken him from being a pretty darn good pitcher to absolutely phenomenal pitcher that he's been so far this season. Coming up, I'm going to look a little bit more at this game and some lineup construction and a historic thing that Ohtani did, and probably the most accurate Angels tweet of all time. But first, this episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. As the sun comes up and small businesses are back in business, LinkedIn Jobs makes it easier to grow your team. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the people you want to interview faster and for free. You can create a job post in minutes using LinkedIn and their free network beyond to the world's largest professional network of over 810 million people. Then add your job to the purple hiring frame for your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you are hiring so your network can help find the right people for you to hire. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience. You can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find candidates you want to talk to faster. Did you know that nearly every week, nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn? Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonmlb. That's linkedin.com/lockedonmlb to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. This episode is also brought to you by Blue Nile. Whether you're ready to pop the question or you're celebrating a milestone moment, find jewelry as unique as her with the modern convenience of online shopping at BlueNile.com. Blue Nile has simple online tools that let you choose the diamond shape, size, and clarity, as well as getting the setting style, and Blue Nile's bench jewelers will then handcraft her perfect engagement ring. Each ring is one of a kind. Looking for fine jewelry but having trouble choosing? Blue Nile has jewelry experts on hand 24/7, available via phone or chat to help you find a memorable gift at every single budget. Make your moment sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com, and Locked On Rangers listeners get $50 off purchases of $500 or more. This podcast exclusive includes engagement. Use code LOCKEDON. That's code LOCKEDON. Plus, every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. Shop stress-free and find your forever piece. Go to BlueNile.com today. Now, let's look quickly at the rest of this game. This was a complete offensive game. Kole Calhoun had a 2-run homer just the same day that I criticized him. Maybe I need to start being more critical of Rangers players. This has happened so many times. It happened with Marcus Semien. It happened with Corey Seager, with Kole Calhoun, with now Kole Calhoun again, with Nathaniel Lowe. Maybe I just need to talk trash more often. I don't like doing it. Maybe that's why it's so effective. It's because, all right, when I finally get reluctant enough to talk trash, maybe they're all very, very avid listeners of the podcast. That would be super, super ego inflating if that actually happened. But there's no way. I'm not that important. I'm pretty important. I put out a great podcast. But if I were them, I would not listen to any podcast about the Rangers because that would be just too much in my head. But this was a absolutely massive shot. He needed it. He hadn't had a home run in the last 2 weeks. He has very much desperately needed it. His offense has gone completely in the crapper. He's still provided some value in left field where he hasn't played a whole lot, but he's got the experience of being a Gold Glove outfielder. Granted, it was in right field when he did win his Gold Glove several years ago. He was not nearly as old as he is now, but he's still taking smart routes and providing a lot of value defensively and being just a veteran bat. But the one thing I don't like about what he's doing, and it's not his fault, is that Woody keeps hitting him so high in the lineup. When he was hitting in the 4 hole. He kept hitting him high in the lineup when he was in his absolute stinker phase in the month of April. I thought that was absolutely stupid. It was absolutely stupid. He kept hitting him way too high up for too long, and then putting him in the 4 hole when he was just hitting absolutely everything. That made sense. That made a whole lot of sense. But right now, he's in a huge slump. Once he starts to show that he can actually get out of the slump, then put him back up in the lineup. That's fine. Ideally, you would want him in like the 5 spot-ish in your lineup. But right now, him hitting cleanup, it's just, I know he had a 2-run homer this one. I know he did, but he had just been in such a rough way lately that I don't think it's smart keeping him there. Nathaniel Lowe has been absolutely crushing it, and he needs to be hitting higher up in this lineup. I've trashed Nathaniel Lowe more than my fair share of time, but he is crushing it right now. You need to get him more at bats. You need to have him higher up in the lineup. Get him right next to Adolis Garcia and Corey Seager and Marcus Semien, all of whom are on varying degrees of hot streaks, and get him hitting 4th right now. I mean, Mitch Garver is just coming back off the IL, and he has been extremely hot and cold. He is either on fire for a week or absolutely doing nothing offensively. Like, he is just one or the other, and he kind of feels like the huge luxury item in this lineup. And ideally, you would like him to be hitting like 3 or 4 in the lineup. But again, he's just coming back off the IL. He's not getting a whole lot of consistent playing time. I don't really know what the deal is of a guy who is playing just DH only, not being able to play every day. He's not DHing in this second game. We're going to see Josh Smith in left field in this one. But again, I don't know. Maybe I'm just nitpicking at this point. But the Rangers continued their trend of being a team that hits a lot of home runs and a lot of solo home runs. They at least did have 2 non-solo home runs. Granted, they were just 2-run homers, but that's still double the value of a solo home run. So we love to see that. And a really, really great day for the bullpen. 3 guys come out of the pen, and none of them allow a single base runner. Absolutely fantastic. Matt Bush came in, shut it down. Dennis Santana came in, had got a clean inning, which I like and I want to see more of. He shut it down. And then Brock Burke comes in the 9th inning, mainly because he hasn't worked in a while. And even though it was a 7-run game, they weren't going to bring in Joe Barlow. I think that's fine. Bring Brock Burke in, so if you really need him tomorrow, then you can bring him in again. I don't think you can put him in for a multi-inning outing in this game, this day game. Maybe they won't even use him as even a single-inning outing, since it's a day game after a night game. But it was about as low stress as you can ask for, because he didn't allow a single base runner, didn't get a strikeout, didn't matter. There was nothing brewing for this Phillies offense. Huge, huge win. But I want to talk about this. Before I get into the lineup construction, I want to talk about this Angels game and what might be my favorite tweet of all time about baseball. This is a tweet that happened last year in May, and it describes very accurately pretty much every Angels game. This guy was at Matt O'Mike on Twitter. Every time I see an Angels highlight, it's like Mike Trout hits 3 home runs and raises his average to 528, while Shohei Ohtani did something that hasn't been done since Tungsten Arm O'Doyle of the 1921 Akron Groomsmen, as the Tigers defeated the Angels 8-3. Is that not the most accurate statement about anything Angels? And last night was the true embodiment of this tweet. The Angels lost 12-11 in 11 innings to the Royals, one of the worst offenses in all of baseball, and Shohei Ohtani had an absolutely massive, massive game. They came back from down 5-0, the Angels did. They came back from down 6-1 in the 6th inning. Shohei Ohtani hit a home run that scored Taylor Ward and Mike Trout in that 6th inning, and then he had a sac fly to get another run to get him within 7-6. Jared Walsh had a triple as well, and then Shohei Ohtani in the bottom of the 9th inning, after they are down 3 runs after a Bobby Witt Jr. 2-run homer in the top of the 9th inning, Shohei Ohtani just blasts one of the hardest hit home runs you will ever see deep into right field, into the night sky, stares at it for like 5 seconds at the majesty of his home run, and ties the game up. They go to extra innings. And even though Shohei Ohtani got a sac fly in the bottom of the 11th inning to bring it within 1 run, nobody could do anything else, and they lost to the freaking Royals. Oh my gosh. He is a free agent after next season. And he has talked about, I want to make the playoffs. This is why I came here, which, first off, Shohei Ohtani. In case you didn't know, the Rangers were really close in getting a Shohei Ohtani the first time, and he wanted to make the playoffs. So I don't know why he chose the freaking Angels. They are not a team that goes to the playoffs. They just aren't. I get that he wanted to play on a West Coast team. He is 27. He'll be, I believe, 29 if my math holds up. It'll be his age 29 season whenever he becomes a free agent that season. But yeah, I don't know really what he was thinking. He came in 2018, so granted, about the worst time for the Rangers to try and show off that they're competitors. This was like the middle of the road Rangers, so I kind of get why he chose the Angels. They definitely did have a better chance at making the playoffs at that point. I want to say that they still had Albert Pujols at that point, and I want to say that they had just signed Anthony Rendon, who, talk about dodging a bullet contract-wise, the Rangers would be absolutely handicapped in a guy who has not been able to stay healthy, which is not his own fault, and I don't want to penalize him for the contract because go get your money. But it's also kind of funny that the Angels keep signing these big players that keep underperforming while they have Mike Trout, and now they also have Shohei Ohtani, and they even have Taylor Ward, a third guy who's absolutely crushing it this year, has been one of the better offensive players in baseball. But that's definitely something to keep an eye out on because he was so close to coming to the Rangers before. I think the Rangers would absolutely go all in to pay Shohei Ohtani $50 million a year. I think he just made like $3 million last year. I think he's making $5 million this year. If Spotrac, however the heck you pronounce this stupid website, if they're accurate with their money, which again is absolutely insane. He's arbitration eligible next year for his third year. I can't imagine that this $5 million is accurate with how historic he was last year and continues to be this year. Just something to keep an eye on. Anyway, ideal Rangers lineup construction. At this point, subject to change based on who is performing well and who is sucking and who I immediately criticize who starts going off. But right now, my ideal lineup would be something like this. Simeon and Seager and Garcia in the 1, 2, 3 spots. Nathaniel Lowe hitting cleanup. Garver in the 5 hole. Kole Calhoun, I'd say in the 6 hole feels about right. But honestly, I might rather have Smith or Duran or Miller, whichever one of those guys is in the 6 hole over him. I don't know at this point, but I totally want to go left, right, but it kind of depends on whether you're going with Duran or Smith or Miller because each of those guys are different. Well, two of them are left-handed, one of them is right-handed, so it kind of depends on how you want to split that up. But then Jonah Heim, I think, in the 8 spot, I think makes sense. Right now, he is not doing well. And Leody Taveras, who has been not great war-wise. They have him at a negative .5 war, which I don't think is at all accurate in 8 games. I don't know what the hell they're using to calculate that, but they have him defensively a negative .3 war in 8 games in center field. It's Leody Taveras. I don't know what the heck they're watching or what they're factoring in, but he has not been bad defensively in center field. He has been his normal great self. Granted, he hasn't like robbed 3 home runs in amazing ways like Eli White did, but he's still been good. I don't know what the heck they're doing there. Defensively or offensively, a negative .2 war. That's about accurate. His OPS is 1 point below 600. Hasn't been great offensively. You're not asking him to be great offensively. You're asking him to be fine. You're asking him to be fine. A fine contributor as the number 9 man, providing solid defensive value in center field. But that's kind of what I would ideally want. Jonah Heim has been not in a great way for quite a while. He does have home runs in 2 of the last 3 games that he's played in. But overall, offensively, even if you look at his last 7 games, he's only slugging .464. He has 2 home runs in that 7-game span, 28 at-bats. Like, he's not been in a good way. The first month of the season was a little bit of an outlier. I don't think he's like really. He just hasn't quite had it. I don't think he should have a 250 on base. I think he should have a higher on base than that in his last 30 games. I think he's better than that. And obviously the framing provides a whole lot of value. But again, I think we might have been fooled by that first month of the season. It was great. It was fun. And I think, honestly, that month and just being kind of average-ish offensively for like a major league player is good enough to get him on the All-Star team, because the rest of the catchers outside of Alejandro Kirk, who in good faith I cannot put Jonah Heim above him on my ballot because Kirk has been so absolutely phenomenal for the Blue Jays offensively, one of their best offensive players in a lineup that has guys like George Springer and Vladdy Guerrero Jr. and Bo Bichette. Like, he has been absolutely fantastic and the best catcher in baseball this year, but Jonah Heim has been incredibly valuable as well. He has been one of the more valuable Rangers players, according to Baseball Reference 4. He is still in that top 5 at 1.5. He is behind Martin Perez, who is at 3.3 with that great start. Adolis Garcia at 2.1 and Brock Burke at 1.6. Jonah Heim is at 1.5, just ahead of Corey Seager, which, again, continues to be kind of perplexing and encouraging for Jonah Heim, but also perplexing in a bad way for Corey Seager. But again, I still love Jonah Heim. I still think what he's doing now is absolutely fantastic. But long term, I do think he's kind of a backup or kind of split role. He's not that 1A type of catcher. I think Sam Huff's potential is still way higher than his. Obviously, defensively, I do think that Huff provides a little bit less value with the framing. But his arm is much, much better, and I think he's more likely to catch more base stealers than Jonah Heim is. And he's also got that true 80-grade power. Now, while Jonah Heim does have some pretty decent power, he doesn't tap into it quite as much as Sam Huff does, but that's not as huge a slight as it is to Jonah Heim, as it is a compliment to Sam Huff. But Rangers have an afternoon game. Hopefully they can continue and start a win streak and then head into the last two series of June and put some beatdowns on some completely subpar teams and get back to 500, maybe even above 500 for the first time this season. Thank you all so much for listening, and until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball.